Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do a video on the top 5 tips I have for shooting in busy public places. So I've been getting a lot of questions about this lately actually, and it's something that I thought I would address. So I thought I would give a few tips for maybe people that haven't done a lot of shooting in public places before or are a little bit not confident with doing it. Because I know it can be a little bit intimidating to do if you haven't done a lot of it before, and it's sometimes a bit scary walking out in front of a lot of people like that and then just sort of pulling out a camera and shooting. So I think the number one tip I've got for shooting in public is to block it out and ignore, because I think if you get too caught up on how many people are watching you shoot or how many people are sort of intrigued by it, yeah, it tends to maybe affect the way that you're shooting, or not to focus like you should be on what you're actually meant to be doing. So I think the best thing is to just ignore it. Like, people are interested, people are always probably going to look. Try not to make the model feel uncomfortable with it either. Just let them know, look, we're in a busy place, because I know a lot of models will be new that you could be shooting, so that's always a little bit intimidating for them. And maybe in that case, if the model's not particularly comfortable with shooting in a public place, you might be best to take her elsewhere or him elsewhere. But just let them know to sort of ignore it and take control of the shoot, make sure that everyone is comfortable, and just let them know beforehand that, look, it's a busy place and we'll just have to ignore, you know, anything that sort of comes our way with that. My number 2 tip is to be polite. Now, I've been past photo shoots before where I've seen the photographer get really rude, and I know, look, there's sometimes money at stake when you are paid to do shoots in public and you need to get things done, and that's fair enough. And yeah, like, you know, things can be set to a deadline or a timeline, so it is hard sometimes when you're shooting in public and you just need to get things done and people are kind of like asking you questions or whatever. But I think the main one is to be polite, and just, if anyone's sort of standing too close or anyone's shooting over your shoulder, like I've had that happen a million times before, you just politely say to them, look, do you mind maybe standing back a bit further and maybe not taking photos, because this is for either a commercial shoot, or you can just say that it's my own work, and you just explain to them that your photography is what matters here and you kind of getting in the way. Not in a horrible way though. You just have to word it right and just say to them, look, sorry, can you just move back a little bit? We just need our space for shooting. And I think that's the main thing, and especially if people, like, I mean, we're all human, and I think it's human to sort of have curiosity and be intrigued by a photo shoot that's going on. It's something that people don't always see every day, so just keep that in mind when you have to discuss with people, or you might have to tell them to sort of move further away, or let them know that. Just be polite. I mean, if they're really hanging around and they're making the model feel very uncomfortable, or they're saying lewd things, or that's when you can get a little bit more firm with them and be like, hey, move on, or I call the police. I mean, if it gets to that point, if it gets really serious, but for the most part, just be polite and ask them to move a little bit further back if possible. Third tip is to get there early to the public place. So if you get there early, the issue of it being too busy will hopefully not be as large. Because if you get to a lot of places early, like especially tourist spots and places that do get really busy, you get there earlier in the morning and there's not as many people there. It's kind of as simple as that. So if you're really not comfortable shooting in a busy place but you want to use that kind of area, I'd say get there as early as you can. And if it means getting up at like 3 AM or 4 AM, it's just something that has to be done a lot of the time, and most photographers will kind of be aware of this already. Especially with landscape and travel photography, it's like imperative that you get there early, because if you're in a tourist spot and you've got tourists, like for example, when I was in Singapore recently, I went to the Merlion and my boyfriend and I were going to take some photos there, and we got there around midday on our tour bus, and it was insane. There were people everywhere. So we were like, nope, screw this, we're gonna come back a little bit later. And we did. We came back on another day at around 5:30, 6 AM, something like that. And there was barely anyone there, and we got the best shots because we just came that bit earlier before all the crowds arrived. So sometimes that's just what you have to do. Number 4 tip is to know your way around Photoshop when it comes to editing people out of the shots, because sometimes it's just something you can't avoid, and people will a lot of the time walk into shots and you might feel like you've got the best shot ever, and then you see this little person in the background that's just kind of ruined the whole thing for you. And really a lot of the time it can be a pretty simple fix in Photoshop. So if you can, like, I'm not saying that you should edit out like tons and tons of people or anything, but you know, for the little fixes, I think to know your way with cloning and the healing tools and how that generally works, and using parts of the image to maybe cover up the parts that you don't want. I think just training yourself to kind of do that a little bit more definitely helps when you have that sort of situation occur. And number 5 is to scout the location beforehand and actually know whether it's going to be a busy location or not. Sometimes you arrive at a location you've never been to before and you don't expect it to be busy, and then all of a sudden there's hundreds of people everywhere and you're like, oh my gosh, I could not have chosen a worse place to shoot. So I would definitely recommend doing location scouting beforehand, especially on bigger shoots, making sure you know whether there's going to be a lot of people there, because then you can plan ahead and you can say, okay, we're going to start the shoot really early, or we're going to maybe have to have a different setup that might sort of block a lot more people out of the way, or whatever you need to do really just to make it work. But I think it's always good to be prepared and to know beforehand whether it's going to be a busy place and what you can possibly do to lessen the issue of it being really busy or people walking into shots, that kind of thing. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped. I know a lot of the questions were based around making the model feel uncomfortable, and I know that can be a really big thing, but sometimes I think, and it depends on the nature of the shoot too. I mean, it could be like more of a lingerie shoot or a bikini shoot that you might be doing, and that can get a little bit more awkward. And when people are kind of standing too close, I think it's okay to sort of tell them, look, maybe move on, you are making the model feel uncomfortable. You can say it in like a polite way, but I think it's always going to be hard to make the model feel comfortable. But I think if you know in advance and you let them know, then, you know, at least they have kind of a bit of a chance to sort of not psych themselves up, but actually be aware that there are going to be people around, not just be surprised on the day. I think most professional models from agencies, most of the time, they literally don't care, and they usually have to get changed in really public places a lot of the time, so it's not generally an issue for agency signed models, but it is for some. So just keep that in mind when you are shooting, and maybe just choose a different location if it is too busy on the day. But if anyone else has any tips, feel free to put them in the comment section below and help out other photographers that might be having some issues around this. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!